12,000 years ago, a cataclysmic comet struck Earth. It's believed to have wiped out most human settlements and may have been the inspiration for humanity's first great stories. But before it hit, they carved the stars into stone. This is Episode 5, the Astronomical Code. But first, a quick recap. So far, we've explored how Gobekli Tepe changed our understanding of prehistory, how scientists discovered the site, and what their excavations uncovered about life 12,000 years ago. And in our last episode, we covered the fascinating theory that the temples were built in a sacred hotbed of nebulas, the birthplace of our sun, and the foundation of many creation myths across cultures. If you haven't seen those episodes yet, do so now and join us back here next week when we'll be covering more fascinating theories about what may have happened here. So now let's dive into the question that has consumed the minds of many amateur archaeologists since news of Gobekli Tepe broke. Was this place used to map the stars? We are programmed to find patterns. Our brains seek them out like a toddler looking for blocks that fit just so, and the world of astronomy is full of them. When we look up into space, we see shapes made from dots of light, and we tell stories about them. These patterns in the night sky inspired cave paintings tens of thousands of years ago. They informed the architecture of great pyramids. They may have even helped humans survive. And if we step back and squint our eyes, it appears there are patterns in the layout of Gobekli Tepe itself. The site seems to be laid out along a north-south line, which some researchers believe could align with the path of the sun through the solstices. That's only the beginning. Several researchers have proposed that many of the enclosures at Gobekli Tepe align with cardinal directions, including some that are almost exactly aligned to true north. In addition, certain pillars appear to correspond to bright stars or constellations. For example, Pillar 43, otherwise known as the Vulture Stone, is a strange monolith decorated with what appears to be a scorpion or a bird with outstretched wings. If we assume the vulture's body aligns with its beak pointing north, then the tips of its wings point toward the bright stars Castor and Pollux, which form the heads of the twins in the constellation Gemini. Some scholars go further. Klaus Schmidt, who led excavations at Gobekli Tepe for many years, believed the site was deliberately designed to mirror the cosmos. He said the central area of Gobekli Tepe resembled the Big Dipper constellation so much that it was clear it wasn't a coincidence. And just as the Big Dipper is part of a larger bear in the sky, the enclosures at Gobekli Tepe were linked together like a collection of smaller bears. Even the layout of the pillars within each enclosure seems to follow patterns found in nature. Take enclosure 1, for instance. Its central pillar appears to be flanked by two structures that seem to mimic the shape of a butterfly. One of the pillars is taller than the other, just like the antennae of a butterfly. And each of these structures resembles a pair of wings, as if the architects of Gobekli Tepe were trying to recreate this creature from the sky down below. But if Gobekli Tepe really was a giant star map, that would raise some serious questions. How did people 12,000 years ago have such advanced knowledge of the cosmos? And why would they need to build something like this? Well, the answer to that second question might have to do with agriculture. Many researchers believe that keeping track of the seasons was essential for early farmers. Knowing when the winter solstice occurs, for example, when the days are shortest and the sun reaches its southernmost point in the sky, can help farmers predict when the weather will turn cold. It could also tell them when the time is right to plant crops. By tracking the solstices and equinoxes, farmers could have created incredibly accurate calendars to predict seasons and weather, which could help them determine when it was safe to plant their crops and harvest their food. But why use a calendar at all? Why not just let fate decide whether your crops grow or not? Well, because letting fate decide isn't really an option when you're relying on farming to stay alive. Some researchers speculate that stone circles like those at Gobekli Tepe were built to track the changing seasons. Others say the pillars themselves were used as gnomons, or upright sticks, that cast shadows that could be used to keep time throughout the day or year. Using stick-like objects to track the sun's position dates back thousands of years. One of the earliest examples comes from the French site of Cosquer, where a long, straight bone was placed upright near a cave painting. By observing the way the bone's shadow moved across the floor of the cave, prehistoric artists could have gauged the time of day and possibly kept track of the seasons. A similar practice is thought to have inspired the famous sundials used in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Some scholars even speculate that Göbekli Tepe's central enclosure, which has a perfectly circular shape, served as a kind of solar oven, a place where worshippers could warm themselves during the winter months or cook their food. This theory is supported by the fact that Enclosure 1 contains the remains of dozens of hearths and a large quantity of burnt animal bones. Perhaps the warmth of the sun replaced the need for a fire in some ceremonies. Or maybe the heat was used to purify objects placed inside the circle. Of course, these are just theories. There's no proof that any of this actually happened here. But there are other ancient sites around the world that seem to suggest it might be possible. For example, there's a Neolithic monument called Nabta Playa in Egypt's western desert. Its stone circles are believed to be older than Stonehenge, dating back to as far as 3700 BCE. Some researchers believe Nabta Playa was used to track the solstices, but there is evidence it could have also been used as a burial ground and a place for stargazing. Or take the South American site of Chanquillo. It features several stone towers arranged in a row, some of which were used as fixed-point markers to observe the paths of planets and the sun. These are just two examples of how ancient societies around the world may have incorporated astronomy into daily life, and they hint at the idea that the people who built Göbekli Tepe might have done the same. But if the people of Göbekli Tepe were using their site to map the stars, it raises another question. What did they do with their map after they built it? After all, Gobekli Tepe was buried at least 3 times. Each layer of sediment came from a nearby river, which means that every time the site was abandoned, it was intentionally covered. What's more, none of the skeletons found at the site show signs of trauma, meaning that whatever caused the inhabitants to flee didn't happen suddenly or violently. This begs the question, were the people of Gobekli Tepe driven away by a catastrophe, perhaps a comet impact? And if so, could the site's many stone structures preserve a record of what happened here? This brings us to another fascinating theory about Gobekli Tepe. The site contains several pieces of what appears to be burnt material. Some researchers believe these remains may contain microscopic particles called microtectites. Microtectites are small pieces of debris thrown into the atmosphere by a large cosmic collision. They travel around the globe before eventually falling back to the ground. Because they're so tiny, microtectites are often difficult to detect. But because they're magnetic, scientists can search for them by using special metal detectors. Scientists have found microtectite layers preserved in the soil at sites associated with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This controversial theory proposes that multiple comet impacts triggered a cataclysmic chain reaction 12,800 years ago that devastated human civilization and ended the Ice Age. A layer of microtectites has also been found at Gobekli Tepe. According to some researchers, this points to a single event that may have occurred sometime after the end of the Ice Age, around 11,700 years ago. Could this have been the mysterious comet impact that wiped out Gobekli Tepe? Maybe. But other researchers disagree. They argue that Gobekli Tepe's microtectites could have come from a different source, like a meteorite that exploded over the Taurus Mountains. In fact, a layer of tektites has already been found there. And just like Gobekli Tepe, it predates the Younger Dryas impact by thousands of years. In the end, it's impossible to know for sure what caused Gobekli Tepe to be abandoned. But while astronomers continue searching for clues in the sky, amateur archaeologists have begun examining the site's many carvings for answers. One carving in particular stands out. Located in the southwest corner of Enclosure 1, this strange relief appears to show a vulture perched on a nearby pillar. At first glance, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with astronomy. But according to German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, the sculpture's placement suggests it could have had an important astronomical function. He noticed that the vulture's head points to the bright star Procyon in the constellation Canis Minor. This is the brightest star in a small group of 3 stars that form a sort of miniature Big Dipper. More importantly, Procyon rises in the east just as the sun sets in the west, marking the end of daylight hours in the winter months. If this is correct, then the vulture may have functioned as a kind of sundial. Every evening in the winter, it would point skyward as the sun set behind it, telling the people of Gobekli Tepe that the days were getting shorter and winter was coming. But what if this isn't an astronomical carving at all? What if it's a mythological one? Is it possible that the people of Gobekli Tepe weren't mapping the stars, but recording the stories they saw up in the sky? Take the vulture stone, for example, the pillar adorned with the large vulture relief. According to Klaus Schmidt, the vulture shown on the neighboring pillar may have been its mate. Together, they symbolized a pair of birds that never flew apart, much like the Big Dipper and its smaller bear companion. Other pillars may have depicted mythical beasts from local folklore. Some look like snakes, others appear to be bulls. One pillar looks like a kind of sea monster with the body of a fish and the head of a lion. These creatures are all well known in Mesopotamian mythology, and some scholars speculate they may have been inspired by actual fossils found in the region. The people of Gobekli Tepe may have looked up at the sky and seen the shapes of these creatures leaping over the landscape. And that leads us to a final possibility. Maybe the carvings at Gobekli Tepe aren't meant to be taken so literally. Maybe they're not meant to represent constellations, mythical beasts, or anything else. Instead, they could be stylized representations of animals, plants, insects, or anything else the people of Gobekli Tepe found interesting. After all, archaeologists have found plenty of carved animals at Gobekli Tepe, including lions, gazelles, bulls, and snakes. To them, these creatures likely represented important aspects of their daily lives. They may have been a source of food, a tool for survival, or simply something that caught their interest. In short, they could have been seen as interesting or beautiful. In other words, the carvings at Gobekli Tepe could be art in the truest sense of the word, a collection of abstract designs that express the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of a prehistoric culture. While scholars debate the meaning of the site's many carvings, there is one thing they agree on. All of these theories and more will continue to be debated until we know why Gobekli Tepe was buried. To learn more about the excavations at Gobekli Tepe and what scientists hope to discover about life 12,000 years ago, watch episodes 2 and 3. Next week, we'll explore one of the most controversial theories about Gobekli Tepe yet, the possibility that it was once home to a secret society that worshipped a forgotten god. Thanks for watching. An additional thanks to our supporters who make videos like this one possible. Do you think Gobekli Tepe was an observatory, a temple, a holy site? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos from Seeker next week.